Hey folks, how y'all doing today? Jaime on the Wingman 115 channel, coming at you with another knife tip, so stick around. Hey folks, thanks for joining us today here on the Wingman 115 channel. I'm just going to do a quick little knife tip. It's a do-it-yourself knife tip. Now, if you're a knife nut, which if you're watching this, you probably are, and obviously John, aka Wingman 115, and myself, we're big knife nuts along with traditional archery and being in the outdoors. So as knife nuts, we got a bunch of knives, and we are knife users, and we typically have different knives for different purposes, and they're packed away, stashed away where they need to be in our kit. So when it's time to go and do the hunt or do the camping or do the whatever, we have the knives that we want to take with us already kind of pre-staged. But I think that some of us do have some knives that we want to display or show off. They could be safe queens, but why keep them in the safe? How about we put them on our desk or on a coffee table or on a bookshelf? At least that's what I do, because some knives are just beautiful to look at. You may not use them, but they're just well designed, and there's an artistic beauty on some of those knives. We live in a time when knife makers are just going above and beyond what is a simple cutting tool and making it into an art form. Now, before I go any further than that, if you are going to display a knife in your home, safety first, right? So if you got kids running around, toddlers, common sense, don't let it be at grabby level. Or if you got pets, cats that like to knock stuff off, you might want to think twice before putting anything out on display. But hey, it's just me, and I got little things, trinkets put around the place. So one of those items that I have are knives. So if you were to put them on display on a tabletop, there are knife displays that are sold. You can find them online, and they go from very simple pieces of plastic wedges to elaborate antlers on wooden bases. And I kind of looked around to get an idea, but as this video implies, this is for do-it-yourself. As you can see here, I'm going to start off with one of the more complex, which really wasn't, type of displays that I did on my own. Now on this one, if I could do this without cutting myself, this is a really nice blackjack knife. It mimics a Randall camp and trail knife. So this is a knife that I really wanted, found it online, but I made the stand. Actually, this stand was for another knife, but this particular knife still fits into it. Very simple. I'm going to remove the knife so I can talk about the stand, if I could do this safely. So just a simple chunk of wood came off of a tree. Now the tree was alive, but this branch, big fat branch, was cut off and wasn't growing. So I decided I'd take it off, cut it off, and then I used other smaller branches that I could tell would fit the knife well, especially for the handle and whatnot. So some eyeballing, kind of looking at it, just basically took off some wood and then played around with it at home. And what's keeping it all together is some simple screws. That's all it is. So I wanted to pride myself in doing this all by hand and hand tools, but I did have this plank. I got it cross-cut at work. So I had one of our carpenters slab it out from a larger piece. But everything else, just hand saws and some pocket knives. I did have to hit that with my Leatherman wave to cut out the wedge for the blade. If you could see, obviously it's at an angle. And same thing with this guy, just little saw there from the Leatherman wave, and put some screws in it, and that was it. So very simple, no glue, nothing. Now, here's something important though that came of this project. Like I said, this came off of a living tree, the branch that was cut off. Well, I made the mistake of, I was all happy and proud of this when I had the knife that I had in this. This was still green. And it didn't dawn on me. So after having the knife sitting in there for about a couple of weeks, I went to use it, and the curvature, the part of the belly of the knife actually crumbled, the apex. So I quickly found out with some online research that moisture will obviously corrode and thus cause blades to chip and crumble. That's why you see a lot of kitchen knives that have the chips. It's maybe that they're not hitting anything hard, but moisture on those apexes, because they're so fine, that's why they're sharp, that the moisture will cause it to crumble and break. So that was a tough lesson learned. Luckily, I was able to fix that knife and on my own, on my diamond stone, and it doesn't look like anything happened, but it was a very good lesson to learn. So if you do embark on a do-it-yourself wood project and that wood is somewhat green, let it season for about a year. That's what I did. I waited a year, and I now have this knife and there's no problems with it. Yeah, it looks a little pitted, but that's how it came because it was used. But that has nothing to do with a wooden project. Now this was, like I said, one of the more elaborate ones. Now, because I enjoy doing this, I wanted to display some other knives, and I had some surplus of the wood of that same tree. And don't ask me what the tree is because I don't know what it is. But here was a big fat chunk of branch that I just simply cut at an angle. This knife, CFK 108, it's a big hefty knife, almost 1/4 of an inch thick. And I needed a piece of wood that would hold it without tipping over. So again, Leatherman wave, cut that out, or I could use my Baco lapline. I think it was my Leatherman wave. I did have to whittle it out a little bit with a small knife, with a Leatherman wave blade, and it fits perfect. So the balance works great, and again, I needed that length of wood to keep it from tipping over. So for those thicker knives, you are going to need, if you want to go with something simple and solo, make sure it's going to be able to support that type of a heavy blade. So for your smaller knives, this was, I better put this down over here so I don't cut myself. You can tell this wedge was part of that more elaborate display, and that simple light wedge worked for this simple, thinner hunting knife. Another CFK knife, this little hunter with a sheep's horn handle. Beautiful knife, beautiful knife. But it's a lightweight knife, and all it needed was this simple wedge to keep it up because it's not that heavy. But that's all it was, just an extra piece of cut from that other more elaborate display stand. So that's it, folks. It's just a way to kind of get your creative juices flowing. If you have some really nice knives that you might want to display, whether again on your office desk or in the study, a coffee table, whatever, you don't necessarily have to buy stuff. Try to think outside of the box, let those creative ideas come into mind, and use your hands to make something nice. And you can actually use your knife to maybe whittle out some of those areas. And that's what I did. I try to bring in the display item into the project. Just gives it that much more of a intimate feeling for your display and story. So that's it, folks. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next video.